Hey, what's up, my juniors and seniors? I apologize if this lesson's coming just a little bit late this morning. I am making this one the morning of. I woke up pretty early this morning to get this one done, mostly because I went back and forth about what to teach this week grammatically. My first thought was to teach semicolons and colons and just keep moving on with punctuation. But I ended up settling on word choice because it's such a valuable thing to focus on. And there I am using the word thing in a word choice lesson. We'll cover that in a bit. But I wanted to cover word choice because it's so valuable for our college application essays. I'm hoping you notice that in our journal entry today, is noticing that word choice is a strength of a lot of those college application essays that you were able to read. We're going to work on that for ourselves in this first part of this lesson. So our objectives for today, one is to strengthen word choice in your writing. So there are just some strategies that I want to teach today for using better nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs especially. The other focus really for this week is to draft college application essays based on my feedback. And we'll cover that in our second shorter video today. So right now, if you're watching through the word choice strategies video, once again, effective word choice will make your college application essay stand out among all the other essays that are going to the college that you're applying to, or colleges, I should say. So it's not a bad idea to take notes on word choice and start applying these new strategies as you draft your essay this week. Let's pray, and then we'll get into that PowerPoint. Lord Jesus, thank you for this day. Thank you for waking me up in order to kind of reshuffle this lesson. I really went back and forth on this one, and I was worried that I wouldn't pull it off in time, but you are good, and I know that you are that you're working what's best for me and for my students too. We do want to lift up all of us as we power through this last week of full virtual learning, as we prep for getting back into the building next week. I pray especially for all of our teachers who are making that transition too. We love you, Jesus. We pray this all in your name. Amen. Let's do it. Word choice strategies. So once again, I mentioned this a moment ago, but your attendance assignment today, your journal entry, I should say, is to, I'll just go there real quick. It's to read one of the college application essay examples from Tufts University. Every year they like to post a couple that worked really well for their applications that came through. It's a good idea to read through those, but maybe choose one to reflect on. Please note, it says please reflect on any number of these questions. You don't have to answer every single question I give here. I just want to give you kind of a chance to reflect on a really well-written college application essay. All right, word choice strategies. Let's do it. There we go. So I actually really like this image that PowerPoint gave me because I like to think of each of these little light bulbs as a word, right? Let's say I'm writing a poem, for instance. I'm going to give you guys a poetry writing journal in our next lesson, actually. Let's say I'm writing a poem, and in my poem I've used the word dog, right? That might be this first light bulb here. But dog is just, it's so basic. I need something more creative. I need something more clear, more precise for my poem, right? Puppy, nah. Mutt, not quite right. Hound, that's closer. Beagle is what I want, right? And that beagle is that golden word that I'm looking for here, that light bulb that really makes my line of poetry work. That's, in a lot of ways, that's how word choice works, no matter what we're writing. Whether we're writing an essay or a poem or a story, using the right word can have such a powerful impact on your reader. Let's talk first about why this is important. So I like to think of this on 3 levels. On the most basic level, choosing the right word, choosing the correct word, I should say, is a matter of avoiding confusion. So check this sentence. Gwen stacked the ball out of his hands. Well, notice that I underlined stacked the ball. That's because there are 2 words that are unclear in this sentence, right? First of all, I've got the word well, let's use the word ball, right? B-A-W-L, ball means to cry. I think we need B-A-L-L, ball right here. So that's a spelling error. It's a homophone technically, but by fixing that homophone, by fixing that word choice, we get a little more clear on what the sentence is saying. The word stacked doesn't seem right either. To stack means to put things one on top of another. I think the writer meant smacked here, right? Gwen smacked the ball out of his hands is a much better sentence because it's clearer. So on the very most basic level, I want to make sure that we're all good on word choice by choosing the correct word to avoid confusion. Part of that is spelling and homophones errors, but the other thing is just simply knowing what word means what in a sentence. Stacked means to raise things up one after another. Smacked means to knock something loose, to hit. On the highest level, so most basic level is avoiding confusion. On the highest level, it's about creativity, being poetic, right? With a loud smack, notice I italicized smack to give that emphasis, Gwen swiftly dispossessed the boy. This might look like a line that comes more out of a story, right? Notice, between the first sentence and the second, first of all, we moved the word smack into an interjection here, a sound effect for effect there. We got rid of the word ball because we used the word dispossessed. Dispossessed is a great verb meaning to steal something from someone. In sports, it means to take the ball away from someone. And I added an adverb swiftly just to give that some extra flair as well. That's a much better sentence right there because I chose specific words to bring that out creatively. Again, that's the highest level. Not every sentence in your essay is going to look something like this, but sprinkling those in every once in a while really engages your reader. Our biggest need for improving word choice, from what I've seen in our writing so far, is kind of in the middle of those two things. It's bigger than avoiding confusion, not quite at the level of sprinkling in creativity everywhere. What we need to work on is being specific with our words. And that's really the biggest thing that most people need to work on with word choice, is being specific with the words that they choose. Here's an example. It says, Gwen hit the ball out of the boy's hands. Now, this is a better sentence than Gwen stacked the ball out of his hands for several reasons. First of all, better verb for hit. We spelled ball correctly. And we clarify who his is here a little bit. But we can be even more specific, right? When I say the word hit, what do you picture? Is she using a bat? Is she using a tennis racket? Is she using her hands? We can use a better verb there to be specific, right? Maybe smacked works there. Gwen smacked. What kind of ball is it? Is that a basketball? Is it a football, right? I'm going to choose football. We'll make this like she's stripping the ball loose, right? Or we could say, instead of smacked, right? Gwen stripped the football out of, let's name this boy too, right? Gwen stripped the football out of her boyfriend's hands. Or Gwen stripped the football out of Jamal's hands, whatever you want to name this boy, right? Notice that the more specific we are in this sentence, the more engaging the sentence is for us as readers too. That's why it's important, and that's the biggest thing we need to work on, is specificity in our word choice. More on that in the second part of our lesson, because a lot of you in your college application essay proposals, I suggested to be more specific as you plan. Here's some general tips for word choice. So this isn't attached to any specific part of speech. These are just some tips in general that you should follow to improve your word choice overnight. So small things you can do. For one, we should know word choice mainly impacts the nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs we write. So we know that there are 8 parts of speech. The main 4 that make up most of the words in the English language are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. There's about 1 million words in our language. Hundreds of thousands of those are made up of nouns, because there's a lot of different nouns in our language. Verbs, a lot of different verbs. Adjectives, a lot of different adverbs, or a lot of different adjectives. And there's pretty much an adverb for every adjective as well. So we've got a lot of words in our language, mainly those 4 parts of speech. The other 4 parts of speech are pronouns. There's a limited number of those. Prepositions, there's only about 50 of those. Conjunctions, there's a couple dozen of those. And interjections, which are not all that great for formal writing anyway, so we'll ignore those for now. So those other parts of speech are more grammatical, and we'll focus on those later this semester. A general tip, do not use words that you cannot define. So we all know that we want to use big words in writing because it makes us seem smart. You can do that as long as you actually know what you're saying. I should note, this does include the word thing. If I were to ask you to define the word thing, what would you say? I don't even know how to define the word thing, right? We'll talk about this when we get to nouns in a moment. But when we talk about words that you can't define, that includes really big words that we might be tempted to use incorrectly. Or it could include really small words that we overuse too. Another pro tip, be specific by using precise words to be as clear as possible. That's where dictionaries come into play, right? If you're looking for like just the perfect word to mean what you mean, use the dictionary to find what that perfect word is. Going back to my dog example, right? Let's say I need to use the word dog, but I'm talking about a specific dog that I don't quite know. I'm going to get online, or I'm going to grab a dictionary and actually look up what word I'm looking for there. The other general tip is to be creative by using synonyms to keep your writing fresh and engaging. The word dog, for instance, it's kind of a boring word on its own, right? But the word pooch, or the word puppy, or the word hound, or the word mutt are more creative, and by varying that in my writing, I make it more interesting for my reader. So once again, dictionaries and thesauruses are your best friends. Dictionaries for looking up new words and their definitions. Thesauruses for looking up synonyms. For the rest of this presentation, I want to give some specific strategies for different parts of speech, starting with verbs, because verbs are the ones that probably get hit the hardest in writing, in academic writing. Verbs are the part of speech most impacted by word choice. There are numerous verbs that are overused in writing. I'll show you a list of those in just a moment. But let's play around with the word show, for example. This is one that you guys have probably been using in essays for years. It's one that I still get tempted to use in essays or overuse in essays. Here's an example. You might see a sentence that says something like, this example shows why it is important to wear a seatbelt. Now, at first glance, that's actually a decent bit of commentary, right? Maybe we've got some evidence, an example, or a quote before this one. And then in our commentary, we're explaining how it shows why it's important to wear a seatbelt. Here's the issue. The word show can mean so many different things, right? It can mean to demonstrate something. It makes me think of a TV show, right? Not to mention that an example itself didn't pull out its hands and demonstrate something to you, right? So it's kind of an imprecise verb. We need a more precise verb or a more creative verb to show that, right? We could say this example illustrates why it's important to wear a seatbelt, or demonstrates why it's important to wear a seatbelt, or proves why it's important to wear a seatbelt. Again, there are so many verbs that get overused in writing, and the internet is full of resources and lists for verb synonyms. So I'm not going to go crazy on that right now. You should know that in our Schoology resource folder, I did put a really good list that you should start with as well. So if you follow this link, I'll open it. So I opened up our support materials folder. It's inside of course materials, verb synonyms. And this is a good place for you to start if you're looking for synonyms. Might not be a bad idea to write an entire essay and then come back through this list and see if you used any of these overused verbs. So for instance, ask, for instance, right? You could say, instead of, he asked me a question, he questioned me. He inquired. Seek information from is not the best. He requested. We have inquired there. He interrogated, he examined, he quizzed, right? We can keep going with these too. Explains on there. I put a star by any of these verbs that are common in writing. Decide, describe, do, explain, get. Get is a really weak one. Have, make. Make is a good example in general, right? You can make a pizza. You can also make a request of someone, right? You can also make a birdhouse, right? The word make can mean so many different things, and so it's good to be precise with the exact word that you want to use. I could go on and on about these right now, but I don't want to eat up a bunch of your time that way. Once again, use this list to replace verbs within your own writing. As I'm grading college application essays especially, I'm going to be highlighting those areas where you could improve word choice, especially by using more precise verbs. Let's go back. Nouns are the next one. Now, nouns are probably the ones that give you the most propensity to be creative as well. Some ideas of overused nouns. The word thing is one of them. Like I said earlier, the word thing is almost impossible to define, and so when we use it in writing, we really mean something else. And this includes other forms of thing too. So I just said something in a sentence, right? What I really meant was some other idea or some other word. We'll talk about that more in a moment. The word stuff is just plural for thing. The word idea, there are better words for idea. Person is rather imprecise, right? Same thing with man, woman, boy, or girl. There are better words to be creative, or there are better words to be more precise with using those. Place, time, animal. If you're writing a short story and you said he was chased by an animal, use the specific animal that he was chased by. A bear, a grizzly bear, to be more specific, right? Same thing applies with general animals. The word dog I've been using as an example. It's very basic. You can be more creative or precise. Cat, bird, fish, and it goes on. The word plant as well. I watered my plants. I watered my hydrangeas. I watered my tomatoes. I watered my potatoes. Whatever plant that it might be. So 2 tips there. For one, be specific. Check this example. I enjoy video games and other fun things. Well, there's this question of, well, what does he mean by fun things? Be specific. What fun things do I enjoy? I enjoy video games and other hobbies, or I enjoy video games and playing sports. I can be specific about what those other fun things are, which gives my reader more clarity. Another example, I drove my car to work today. Two words there that are rather unclear. First of all, what kind of car? Second of all, where's work, right? I drove my Toyota Camry, that's my car, to Milwaukee Lutheran today. That's my work. Another route to take with nouns is to be creative, and here's where you can play with connotations. I know you guys learned a lot about connotations in English 1. I'm hoping you guys followed up with them on English 2 as well, or in English 2 as well. Connotations are how you attach a positive or a negative meaning to something as well. So when you use creative synonyms for a noun, you can kind of sway what direction you want that to go emotionally. Check it. I might have a sentence that says, let's go over to my place. Place is a weak noun, right? Let's replace that with something better. I could say, let's go over to my home. Well, the word home brings with it this feeling of comfort, maybe this feeling of joy or happiness or peace. Or I could say, let's go over to my crib, right? Crib has a different connotation to it, right? It's not negative, so to speak, but it carries more of like a chilled or relaxed vibe to it, right? Notice that whichever way I go with that is still better than place, but it gives me a more creative way to say that sentence. A dog, there's dog again, a dog tore my wallet to shreds. Well, let's be creative here. A mutt tore my wallet to shreds. Mutt has kind of a negative connotation to it. Maybe I'm angry when I'm giving that sentence. A puppy tore my wallet to shreds. Maybe I'm not feeling as angry there because it's understandable why a puppy would tear my wallet to shreds, right? Whichever word I go with there is better than dog because it's more specific. But I can also kind of take that a creative direction depending on what synonym I choose. Again, there's lots of options here. Use a dictionary, use a thesaurus for help. Adjectives are another one. So some examples of overused adjectives. Good and bad. Happy and sad, hot and cold. Really any other weak adjective that you would expect like a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old to know. We want to go more advanced than that in upper level high school stuff and low level college classes as well. The best strategy for replacing adjectives is to use really precise synonyms. So in other words, state exactly what you mean. If you're saying that it's hot outside, do you mean that it's 80 degrees? Do you mean that it's 90 degrees? Do you mean that it's 120 degrees? Use a more specific word for that by being precise. It's warm outside is better than hot there. It's sweltering outside might mean that it's over 100. It's blazing outside. It gives more clarity. Let's test this out with good. I use good as an example because we overuse it so much in our daily language. We might say something like, this pizza is good. Mira is a good volleyball player. I had a good day. Now here's the crazy thing about overused adjectives. Good in each of these sentences actually means something different. Because Mira, for instance, I'll start with pizza actually. I say this pizza is good. What I really mean is this pizza is tasty, or this pizza is delicious, or this pizza is crispy. It's really whatever I think is good about this pizza is what I mean there. I'm a taste guy. I'll eat whatever kind of food regardless of texture as long as it tastes good, right? So this pizza is tasty is what I really mean. But I don't mean that Mira is a tasty volleyball player. That's a weird and creepy thing to say, right? What I really mean is that Mira is a skilled volleyball player, or Mira is a fast volleyball player, or a strong volleyball player, or a talented volleyball player. Again, by being specific, I'm being clearer about what I mean by good. When I say I had a good day, I'm not saying I had a tasty day or a talented day. I'm saying I had a peaceful day, or a fun day, or an enjoyable day. Once again, just a better adjective there to replace good makes our writing more interesting. All three of these bottom sentences are more interesting than the top ones, but it also makes them clearer for my readers too. Last part of speech to talk through are adverbs. Now, adverbs are a little different from adjectives in that there really aren't any weak adverbs. All adverbs carry the same weight. They don't really change meaning-wise, but some are simply overused. Some examples of really overused, I just used an overused adverb. I used really. Some examples of overused adverbs are very, really, only, totally, actually, and usually. It's not to say that these are bad adverbs. They're just ones that have been used and overused in writing, and we should probably be careful about when we use them ourselves. One strategy, or the best strategy for clearing overused adverbs is to use synonyms. So an example, if you find yourself using really in a sentence in your writing, see if you can use highly instead. Instead of this, the poison was really toxic, was really potent, really powerful, the poison was highly toxic, was highly powerful. Just an example right there. Or only is another common one. The word merely is a great replacement for only. You can play around with different synonyms for adverbs especially. If you are using an overused adverb on a weak adjective, a good idea is to replace both with a better synonym. So here's where our writing gets really weak, right? You might see a sentence that says, you have a very bad scrape on your knee. This is a weak sentence because it's got an overused adverb right on top of a weak adjective in the first place. The nice thing about this is we can replace very bad with a single adjective and make the sentence twice as good, right? You have an awful scrape on your knee. You have a horrific scrape on your knee. You have a nasty scrape on your knee. Whatever I want to replace that with, notice that replaces very bad with one word, one better word in the first place. Stephen King famously said, so the famous horror writer famously said, the road to hell is paved with adverbs. I don't know if I fully agree with him there. I rather like adverbs as a part of speech, but I do agree with him that we shouldn't overuse adverbs in writing, period. If you find yourself using lots and lots of adverbs in an academic essay, you can probably safely cut 40% of them and be okay. So let me know if you need help cutting adverbs or just working on word choice throughout your writing. We'll do a little bit of practice and call this lesson done. 4 sentences here. They all have various word choice errors. Let's see if we can make these sentences better. Take a moment to see if you can do this on your own, and then I'll go over what I think should change about these sentences in just a minute. All right, sentence number 1. The kid said, "You're very tall." So it's several unclear words in this. For one, kid. What kind of kid are we looking at? The verb said could probably be improved, and then very tall we can probably replace with a better word too. I might say something like the child or the toddler. I've got 2 toddlers at home, so we'll use toddler, right? The toddler is now giving a clearer indication of who this kid is. Let's say, instead of said, let's come up with a better verb. The toddler exclaimed. Maybe the toddler's excited, or the toddler shouted. You're very tall. Let's get rid of very tall and say, maybe gigantic. The toddler exclaimed, "You're gigantic." That's a much better sentence than the kid said, "You're very tall." Number 2. I watered my plants and fed my pets. Now this one just has a couple of weak nouns in it, right? We need some specificity here. Watered and fed are fine, but let's come up with some better nouns. For plants, what kind of plants do I want to water here? I like the word hydrangea, right? I watered my hydrangeas, or hydrangeas, however you want to pronounce it. It's a type of flower. I just like the sound of that word. And what kind of pets do I have? And fed my parrots. By saying pets, by saying plants and pets, I'm not giving my readers any indication of what kind of plants or what kind of pets. I just have to be specific in this sentence. Number 3, the text says, we had say once again, we'll replace that the death penalty really impacts minorities. Now here's the issue with says, as we looked at just a moment ago. A text cannot open its mouth and say anything to you. We need to be specific about the verb that actually applies to the text there. So instead of says, a good replacement might be states. It might be claims or argues. We'll use argues here for mine. The text argues that the death penalty really impacts minorities. Let's talk about really here for a moment. Really, again, it's okay as an adverb, but a better replacement really makes the sentence pop. Let's use something like highly works. I'll try disproportionately, right? We hear about statistics that disproportionately impact minorities all over the place in today's media. This one actually is a true statement, right? that the death penalty actually does disproportionately impact minorities. So replace really with disproportionately to be specific. I could replace text here as well if I wanted. Now this is some next level stuff, but if I know the title of this text, let's use it, right? Just Mercy is a text that I read over the summer. Just Mercy states or argues that the death penalty disproportionately impacts minorities. That's a great sentence. Maybe it's an article. The article states. The book states. Chapter 12 states. Be specific about what text you're talking about there. And the last one. I'm so happy I could totally kiss you right now. I should have talked about totally when we talked about adverbs right there. The issue with totally, it's a great adverb, but the issue is that it was hijacked in the 1990s and it was turned into surfer slang. I think of the turtles from Finding Nemo whenever I hear the word totally, right? Totally means in total or completely. So I could replace totally with completely or entirely. It doesn't quite work in this sentence, so I'd probably just cut totally from this sentence. So happy can probably be replaced by a better adjective, right? I'm I'm so overjoyed, I'm so excited, I could kiss you right now, is a better sentence than I'm so happy I could totally kiss you right now. It avoids the slang by cutting out totally, but it also gives a better word for happy. I've kept you guys for a little bit here, so I apologize for that. Feel free to rewatch this video for the sake of taking notes if you need. I am going to be pointing out word choice all the more as I finish grading Who I Am essays, and as we work through your college application essays this week and next week.